Proceeds to sick bay. The doctor should look at it as soon as possible.
It is the way in which we propagate our species.
Please demonstrate how this is accomplished.
So, what's next? I don't know.
Computer. Hot chocolate. Extra Christmassy. Hello, and welcome to Casual Trek, a Star Trek ranking review podcast brought to you by the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network and Incredible Tales magazine. Happy holidays! My name is Marsui Labato, a science fiction writer and a hot chocolate fan.
Hi, happy festive times to you all. I'm Charlie Etheridge Nunn, a writer and a fan of the role-playing game Warmer in the Winter that lets you play a Hallmark festive rom-com in a single session.
Each episode will watch stories from different Star Trek shows and rank them on a big list from best to worst. We both love Star Trek, but it's far from our first and only fandom, and thus makes us the ultimate objective voices on such a task. Like the publishers of Incredible Tales magazine, you bastards. This episode, we're kicking back for the holidays, and rather than picking a specific topic, we've both each picked out an episode of Star Trek to gift each other. Will it be a lovely present, like last year's Conscience of the King, which I gifted to Charlie, or a lump of coal, which was that Enterprise episode that Charlie gifted me? Let's find out. No bitterness or passive aggressiveness. This is the perfect holiday episode for two Brits because we're clearly both drinking something and we're going to be passive aggressive to each other throughout the whole evening, making it uncomfortable for everyone involved.
Perfect. That is exactly what Christmas is all about.
So, Charlie, given that this episode actually will drop on Christmas Day, what will you be doing at this moment in time on Christmas Day proper?
Ooh, Christmas these days is just me and my brother. We normally have a nice bit of a walk over to the sea, curse the tides, and have a bit of a wander back, get the Christmas meal together, and by this time, around the kind of time we're recording, probably gently sozzled.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah. How about you?
Honestly, it's just kind of, it will just be me and Rihanna just kind of chilling out, just spend the entire day to ourselves. We're going to be doing a nice chicken this year, and we watched the Christmas specials, like the Charlie Brown Christmas, Garfield Christmas. We watched some of the Jim Henson ones because Rihanna really loves them, like Sesame Street Christmas, which is the only Sesame Street I've ever watched. And it's an episode where Oscar the Grouch nearly gets Big Bird killed. The Jim Henson Christmas, which is like a chaos crossover of the Sesame Street characters, the Muppets, and the Fraggles in like a big corporate mandated crossover event where the Swedish chef tries to cook Big Bird. Bad things happen to Big Bird in this, but it's all really fun. And this year, for the second year in a row, we're trying our new Christmas viewing tradition, which is Knives Out and Glass Onion in a big festive double bill of watching Daniel Craig's wonderful Southern accent.
Lovely. I think I'm trying to remember whether it was last Christmas. One of the previous Christmases. Oh yeah, I think last Christmas I showed my brother RRR. And before that he showed me Shin Godzilla. So we've definitely got a style for our Christmases.
Okay, I still haven't seen RRR, but Shin Godzilla was amazing, and I got to see Godzilla -1 last Sunday, and that was spectacular.
Why, Mars, I was going to ask, what non-Star Trek thing have you been enjoying since we last spoke? Is it perhaps Godzilla -1?
No!
Oh, okay, carry on.
It's not Doctor Who either, although all 3 specials have just been released and are amazing. Oh, that'll also be what I'm watching Christmas Day, which is Ncuti Gatwa's first episode proper, Ask the Doctor.
Oh God, yeah, I might have to bully my brother into us having that on. It's the only time he sees Doctor Who is if I manage to pull the pressure and and have it on.
Plying with enough whiskey, get them nicely sauced.
Yeah.
What my wife Rihanna and I have been enjoying have been two separate British comedy shows. One of which is the Goes Wrong show, which we've seen before, but we found the first season on BritBox. And have you seen the Goes Wrong show?
Nope, no idea what it is.
Okay, it is a slapstick comedy show. It is about a troupe of performers, like an amateur dramatics drama club, who every week broadcast a 30-minute play to the nation. And every play, something goes, everything is just going wrong behind the scenes, like props break, characters don't remember their lines, the actors playing the characters and the actors themselves are two separate characters. So there have been episodes where two actors had like a horrendous breakup off stage and now pretend to be boyfriend and girlfriend while going through like this really awkward row. It's really hard to kind of explain just in words because it is fantastic slapstick comedy and it is just hilarious.
Okay.
The other thing, we decided to rewatch one of the greatest sitcoms of all time, Fawlty Towers.
Oh, yeah.
We're 3 episodes in. It's hilarious. It will always be hilarious. And it just makes me even more worried that John Cleese is trying to Old Man Fawlty a new Fawlty Towers, because given John Cleese's transformation to Crank, it just makes me worried that the show that he will write won't take into account that Basil Fawlty is a monster, and the show is aware that he's a monster, but is still able to make us sympathetic for him. But all the situations he comes into are due to his own prejudices, his own class biases, his own bigotry, and his own small-natured conservatism. And I feel that any new version he does now will make Basil Fawlty the one sane voice in this easily offended world of snowflakes that John Cleese seems to believe we exist in.
Yeah, that is a worry with any of those kind of things. Like, I gather Frasier has ended up not being like that, which is good. As again, Kelsey Grammer's someone where you enjoy Frasier, enjoy him as Beast, and then find out that Kelsey Grammer for man, not great.
Wait, do you enjoy him as Beast?
I mean, he was all right as Beast.
In
Like
X3?
in frankly some dire films, he was a bright spot.
Wait, was he in more than one X film?
Wasn't he in X2?
No, he just turns up in X. Like, I think he's off screen, like he's on a TV program, he's on a TV show, and it's not Kelsey Grammer. And then in X3, he's Kelsey Grammer, and then it's Young Beast in like the sequels.
Yeah.
Wait, hang on. Okay, we need to note this because I think I just out-X'd the guy who says he's the X-Men fan in our opening credits of the show.
Uh-huh.
Do.
Let's see. Yeah, Last Stand, Days of Future Past.
Okay, all right, but he's not in X.
He has done 2, but yeah, he wasn't.
He wasn't in X2.
I'll tell you this, much like the cartoon, I've not seen the films that many times. Because it's not the comics, and I'm just gonna get rolled up.
Man, we're not even 10 minutes, and already we've reached the bitter passive-aggressive arguments. Charlie, can you pass me the sherry, please?
Fine. You seem to like drinking it so much.
Oh, I do. This is just for the cooking. But you know what? I'm gonna taste that sherry. Ah, damn fine sherry. So, Charlie, what non-Star Trek thing have you been enjoying today? Because we so much want to hear your opinion.
Oh, I've got something you'll love to hear the opinion about. I finally
You can opinion my arse, mate.
I've finally finished watching Riverdale.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh my god. What a show. It's not a good teen drama, but it is definitely the most teen drama. It's something where, like, this final season has been set in the past in 1955, roughly. The previous season had a horror movie universe, which was created by an act of imagination and an explosion, which made this second universe that would kill, like, it. One of the universes had to die for the other one to still be able to exist until Jughead, as Rod Serling like narrator in the horror one, locked himself in a bunker for the rest of time to be the eternal narrator for that world so it could still exist, while also calling through into the baseline world, warning people of things going on and unintentionally giving superpowers to the main cast. Yes, they had superpowers briefly, and there was a giant angel devil war of celestial powers of good and like this eternal evil that was there to gentrify the town now, but also was there in colonial times, colonizing the area, and has always been there as some form of evil. And then a comet hit the Earth and destroyed it all. And one of the angels was like, "Well, we're kind of we're going to reboot the Earth, but while we do that, let's stick you in the 1950s, raise your memories, and then basically they've kind of been at rapid pace going through like Emmett Till, Ray Bradbury, Red Scare stuff, EC Comics, and the Comics Code's destruction of EC Comics. Like so many bizarre things. It's like they did a whole William Castle bit where Veronica ends up running the local cinema but can only get really shitty B movies in. So she ends up turning it into a whole stunt, doing a The Tingler and stuff like that.
I I have nothing to say about any of that, but fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, it was berserk, but in the best ways. I can't recommend it because there's a lot of it, but also I kind of can.
I'm almost scared that like when my wife comes home from work today, she's gonna find me just like hunched on the sofa looking like Gollum watching Riverdale. Okay, last question. Better or worse ending than that great 90s teen drama we both watched, Dawson's Creek?
Oh, now, so Riverdale ends kind of happily. Like the four of them, Betty, Veronica, Archie, and Jughead, are kind of in a four-way relationship for a good year or so before going off to live their lives, and they all have fairly nice lives and then die one by one and end up in the afterlife in a Riverdale of their own. And Dawson's Creek ends with Dawson Leary in a hell of his own making, which I think is better because that man is just cursed to forever make us a kind of teen drama about what if he successfully got off with Joey instead of what really happened, which was Joey and Pacey ended up together. And I want that for him. I want that eternal hell for Dawson Leary.
Well, there are no words. So,
Anyway,
with that in mind, you know, as is now, I guess, traditional for our second Christmas episode, we each chose an episode of Star Trek to give to the other person as a gift.
yeah. So what is this, Miles? It doesn't look like socks in the wrappings.
No. You know, after last year, where you gave me that Enterprise episode, which was the lowest ranked episode on the big list
For
until
ages.
the child death planet. Which, hang on, that episode was, for the folks at home who care as more about the list than we do, Few Tense, which we have noted as Quatermass in the shit. And so it's not socks, but is it another future tense? Have I gifted you Spock's brain? You should
I mean,
have the box. Open the box.
I will admit I very nearly stressed Spock's brain for you. I was like, I'll be nice this year. Okay, right. So let's have a look here, and yeah. Oh, Miles, This can't be a bad episode. This is a Deep Space Nine episode.
I'm sure there exist bad Deep Space Nine episodes. Like I think there's the one where Quark has a sex change.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hang on.
Wait, hang on, check. Just double check.
Yeah, yeah. If it is, you've got the receipt, right? Oh, oh no. This is Necessary Evil from season 2 of DS9.
I wanted to make this is my way of apology. After making you read Casual Tech, I wanted to give you a story which, is a detective fiction, has elements of film noir, and is good. So here we go. Some good detective fiction on this podcast.
Wow. Okay, it is possible. Let's see. Let's see. So this aired on the 14th of November, 1993. Was written by Peter Allen Fields and directed by James L. Conway. And the UK and US #1 hit at the time this aired was Meatloaf with "I'd do anything for love, but I won't do that." Oh my god, what a song!
This song, like I listened to it and I had a hell of a time. I miss 80s power ballads, and I feel I have to mention a little bit of side trivia about this episode. Because when you sent me the show notes and I saw him, like, hang on, that can't be right. Charlie effed up. It was a case of Charlie effed up none, because
Wow.
this song clearly came out in 1983. And so I messaged you. I'm like, Charlie, are you sure you haven't made a mistake? He's like, no, here you go. So, 1993. I checked it myself. 1993. And I thought, no, I'm sure I remember the song from the 80s. Maybe it was a single and not collected on an album until 1993. Nope. Song came out in 1993. So I asked my wife, Meatloaf's I Would Do Anything for Love, but I wouldn't do that. When do you think it came out? And she said 82. I'm like, no, that's where you're wrong. It's 1993. She's like, what? No. It's surely it came out in the 80s. So I asked the guy at work who claims to be a metalhead. 1983. And so I just started asking random co-workers and random customers. And I had a couple of people who said the 70s. Most people said the 80s. And friend of the podcast, Sean Orange, who I am legally obligated to say doesn't pay for Twitter. There you go, Sean. Happy holidays. Can you get your lawyer to stop phoning me, please? Said 1991. So yeah, I think I kind of stumbled in a weird Mandela effect where everyone kind of seems to think that this song just didn't come out in the year it came out in, which was 1993, and not what I thought, the 80s.
Well, its heart is gloriously in the 80s.
Its heart is in the 80s, and its hair is its hair is nice and big, just like it was back in the day.
It's amazing, and the video you can see from that everything that Michael Bay will become.
Oh no, I told Rihanna about that Michael Bay directed the music video, and I was like, no, and she was shocked. Like, no, he also did the Got Milk commercials.
Oh wow.
Which is something our American viewers will know, and we'll just know from ads on the backs of comic books in the 90s.
Yep. Yeah, that's us.
Because American pop culture isn't always ubiquitous, despite what Americans think.
So, I'd best have a look at this Necessary Evil, possibly over a span of about 5 minutes, and tell the listeners at home, who I hope are enjoying a nice, cozy Christmas, what exactly this is all about.
Okay, you've got 5 minutes, because that's when the Yorkshire puddings are ready.
Okay.
And, okay. And Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
Ho, ho, ho.
So, it's a dark and stormy night on Bajor. One bartender by the name of Quark has a meeting with a dame to kill, or to die for. Mrs. Vatrick has a small favor to ask, and the pair used to get one over on Odo, so she knows he can do the job. 5 bars of Latinum doesn't hurt either. Meanwhile, up on the station, we're having some more traditional Star Trek fun as Odo's been pressured into starting a log, which he's mainly using to vent his hatred of having to keep a log. He clocks out just in time for Quark and Rom to break into an old shop, burn away a wall panel and find some secret treasure, a list of Bajoran names. It's a bit weird, and Quark sends Rom to find a camera to take a picture of them, but a shady goon shows up, shoots Quark, and takes the list. Oh my god, Quark's dead! No. We come back from break, and we've got Bashir in full serious mode, just about keeping Quark alive. Rom's panicking until he finds out he'll inherit the Empire if Quark dies. Quark can't be that dumb. He's got to have left it to someone else, just in case. Meanwhile, in flashback, we get friend of the pod, Golden Cat, who meets Odo and mentions about how he's kind of entertaining the Cardassians with his shape-shifting. And the cat reckons, this is fun, but I reckon you'll make a good murder police. And he has a case in mind. Odo's not keen on the idea, but the alternative is randomly killing 10 Bajorans and hoping to get the right one. So Odo is now on board. The victim is a Mr. Vatrick, and Odo interviews the widow. The cat's weirdly polite to her. May want to put a pin in that. She mentions that her husband was having an affair, and the mistress probably did this. Who was the mistress, you ask? Why, none other than Kira Nerys. Yes, and in the present, Kira's heard about the list and asks if this has anything to do with the whole Vatrick case. Odo decides to grill Rom, who's already calling the bar his. After some pressure, Rom does remember one of the names, Cesaro, which is spelt so much worse than it sounds there. Anyway, flashback again. Odo sits with Kira, and he thinks she's a sex worker. He grills her about Mr. Vatrick, and sure, yeah, he fancied Kira a bit, but nothing more than that. She asks why Ducat appointed him, and says, at some point, you're going to have to choose a side one day. In the present, Odo meets Mrs. Vatrick on Bajor and asks about the list of names and mentions offhandedly that Quark's alive. That surprises her. She also has a sudden influx of money, allegedly from a married friend she doesn't want to name. So let's not bring it up. Quark is just about holding on to life at this point, just to spite Rom, and guards are put on his room, just in case. Kira has managed to find Cesaro, and he's dead, drowned in a pond. Oh dear. Meanwhile, in Flashback Town, Odo meets Quark for the first time in a fun exchange. It's first meetings all the time now for this, which is kind of charming. Kira was apparently auditioning for a job, but Quark overplays his seediness with it and then quickly gives up that she paid for an alibi and not enough, in his opinion. The cat shows up, asking if maybe there's an answer yet, and loving how obstinate Odo's being to him. He can't get enough of it. In the present, Odo's been spying on Mrs. Vatrick's comms, and she's been calling in markers, getting money. It looks like she's been blackmailing collaborators, and that's enough to bring her in. The shady Bajoran from earlier overhears this. And back in the flashback, Kira admits she was lying and says, okay, fine, she was off doing stuff. She was doing sabotage to the station as she's in the Bajoran underground. The cat pops up to ask about her, and Odo says, very specifically, she didn't murder Mr. Vatrick, and admits the rest. In the present, the shady guy stabs his way into sickbay, smothers Quark, and Odo bursts in and stops him after hearing Rom's screams. And then Rom screams again after being told that he's saved Quark. Mrs. Vatrick's brought in and says she never saw the shady guy before, but she's phoned him and sent him money. He remains unnamed through all of this, so shady guy and Mrs. Vatrick both end up in prison. She says she didn't kill her husband, and Kira knows because she did it. Oh my god, twist!
Oh,
Yeah!
So close.
Oh my.
You know what, Charlie?
Yeah.
I could give, I might, because it's Christmas, season of goodwill and all that.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose to stop now at 0 seconds because you've pretty much summed up the story, or do you want to finish the synopsis and have the minus be on your tally.
It's all right. It's all right. I've started, so I'll finish.
Okay. And you can carry Ho Ho on.
Yeah. So, Kira did the murder. Oh my god. She found out that Mr. Vatrick was a collaborator and murdered him, while Mrs. Vatrick needed the money and was blackmailing the other collaborators who were on that list from earlier. Odo realizes that his whole reason for being hired was just to keep the cat at arm's reach from the collaborators, and realizes Kira was a lot better at lying than he thought. Will he ever be able to trust her again? We fade out on silence, but the answer will be yes, of course. We've got like 5 more seasons. Then.
40 seconds.
Okay, yeah. 40 seconds isn't too bad.
Not bad.
So, yeah, I
have a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to write a handover at a job?
Kind of. Yeah. Not necessarily in a written form. I've generally introduced people in person to it.
Okay, because I admit I've had to write many handovers in my time at Starbucks. Admittedly, none of them were as passive aggressive as Odo's amazing.
Oh my god!
Here's my log. I think logs are pointless. Here's my report for the day. Everything's fine. Fuck off.
I hope that every single day it was that. Odo's log, like day 240, everything's fine. Fuck off. Logs are pointless.
I think the most passive aggressive one I ever wrote was a Saturday night when the close went so bad because we were so far behind. What was meant to be we get out at, I think it was either 10 or 11, I can't remember, went into Sunday. And once we hit Sunday, I was like, okay, we are done. Whatever's not done, it's fine. My handover wrote, it's now Sunday. If you have any problems about what didn't get done on Saturday, I just want you to know it's Sunday now. I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
Love, Miles.
Oh, well, at least you ended with some love there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Passive aggressively meant love, but still,
I'm British. All love is passive aggressive.
Yeah, again, it's Christmas. It's the time for passive aggressive love.
Yup. Okay, this is probably one of my most rewatched episodes of DS9, and definitely a favorite of mine. Yeah. What did you think?
Man, they really rip off the plaster of introducing Odo to everyone in this. It's fascinating to see because you just kind of assume these people are all floating around each other, and there's not a need for, this isn't a prequel.
No.
Or anything. A kind of, how did these crazy kids all meet? It's just a feature of it, which is good because far too often in those kind of stories, it can feel unnecessary.
Anakin Skywalker, meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, the origin of Han Solo's lucky dice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any of the dark origin of Poirot's moustache.
The dark origin of Poirot's moustache.
But yeah, this was a good fun one. I feel without the flashbacks, there wouldn't have been a huge amount there. Like the solving of the case is very much, we live in a place with open enough information for security people to go, I can monitor all of your incoming and outgoing calls. I can monitor, like, not necessarily listen in on them, but I know who you've called. I can follow the bank details. I know how to do all this. And it very easily points me to, you done this.
Yeah. Like, I know we brought this up in the previous episode of Tek War, where Ed Brubaker said in one of his articles back in one of his comics that whodunits aren't always about the mystery. It's about like the characters and it's about the secrets they hide. And I really think this exemplifies it beautifully with like the main framing device of the Vatrick murder, and then just allowing us to then see the backstory of Odo first coming into the station and how much of a different character Rene Aubergenois plays him in the early flashbacks, where he's very quiet, unassuming. We're used to Odo kind of being the very gruff but fair police constable of the present day. And the thuggy is in crossover when Odo fucking explodes. So it's just really surprising to see him just kind of be a very mumbly character, like yes, no, where you've got Ducat clearly trying to like poke him by bringing up the Cardassian neck trick, and Odo's like, yeah, sure, why am I here?
I quite like that is the case. Even so, we don't get Odo still manages to turn an amount of that into an advantage. You know, he still manages to get people talking, even though he's not got that confidence that he has in the present, where he knows that he can pretty much rough up anyone and it'll be fine. We didn't see much of Quark, but we did get a good feel of him with this, both with the dodgy stuff at the start and the flashback. And I loved that Rom has had to pick locks, had to break into places because he'll get blamed for not having access to them, but he also hasn't been given access to them. Um, yeah, so that was fun.
I love seeing how Quark code switches in the flashbacks where the Cardassians control the station. He is very much the kind of sleazy, kind like the pilot episode where he's much more sleazy and he's very much like, yeah, I sell holo programs for sex. As composed to like the much more friendly, like everyone comes to Quark's in the present day, but then you also get the hints that he still had that, where Mrs. Vatrick mentions that he always gave her a little bit extra tea. So you see just how Quark is able to prosper in these two very different situations.
Yeah, well, you have your very two-dimensional view of Ferengi sometimes and how they act, especially in the TNG era. And it's nice seeing, even though you've got the same philosophies and the same things, how they adapt, how they evolve, how they still manage to be fundamentally them. But yeah, when you're having to work in a place that is occupied by Cardassians, that's going to be quite a different thing, to be able to survive all of that. He may not have had as rough a time as the Bajorans on the station, but still, you're under a lot of pressure there. So, Miles,
Yes.
have you ever hidden or uncovered anything in a wall?
When I worked in a hotel, there was definitely some rooms which weren't in great state of repair because they're mostly being used for storage, where there were holes in the walls covered by mattresses where people had shoved empty cans of Red Bull or whatever that they had been drinking on the sly.
Wow.
I once or twice in jobs I have hidden at Starbucks. They have like electric timers going on to tell you when coffee needs to be rebrewed and whatever. And once or twice I have hidden them in places where they'll go off to be most annoying. Like taken 3 or 4, set them to different times, and then hidden them around the store so they'll all go off in sequence and whoever's on duty will have to find them. I sometimes have dabbled in being a dickhead.
Really?
During the time at Starbucks, much like Quark, I had to adopt very different personas in order to survive.
And one of those personas was a dick.
Oh god, yeah, my work persona can vary from cheeky Cockney Chappie as played by Eric Idle to John Cleese's Basil Fawlty, I'll be honest.
Wow. Okay. A wide and yet still somehow kind of narrow margin.
Yep, I'm still surprised I haven't got as much trouble at work in jobs as I should have done at times.
Ah.
Okay, I know Odo is not your favorite character in
Yep.
DS9. Given how Odo acts sometimes, I get it. I did like how in his narration later on, he mentions that justice is blind, but at the same time, in the flashback, even when he finds out that Kira's the collaborator, he doesn't hand her over to Gul Dukat.
Yeah.
So we see a character who considers himself uncompromisable. He's very much like Judge Dredd, in which yes, he's a bastard who plays by the law, but he at least follows the law and tries to do what the law says instead of letting the law be fluid enough to justify loose morals. We see him compromise himself very early on.
Well, yeah, seeing him, like the way in which he very statedly says that Kira didn't do the murder and doesn't shop her in for being part of the resistance feels like a really nice touch. And that thing of he wants to be lawful neutral, he wants to be just an arbiter of the law, and that's it. But the law can't always work and won't always work.
I think his character is very much inspired by, you've seen Casablanca, right?
Many, many years ago.
I think he reminds me very much of the Claude Reins inspector in Casablanca, who is, I think he's like a French or a Belgian police officer who is stuck having to deal with these goddamn Nazis occupying the town, and he's very much trying to keep the peace. He's trying much to be the middleman. He's leaning on he's leading on Humphrey Bogart's character Rick, and just trying to make things easier for everyone. But at the end of the day, he still turns around and shoots the evil colonel at the end, and then just lets Rick get away scot-free.
Well, yeah, that's definitely the kind of, I can definitely see how that's a direction that that this Odo goes in, because he was a collaborator, but there are lots of asterisks after that. Again, like with Quark, there was an amount of, we're just fucking trying to survive.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, he's collaborating with the Cardassians, but I get the sense that he's also trying to make sure as few Bajorans get needlessly diced in the crossfire of their cruelty as possible. It's just a case of how far is pretend to be a collaborator to these people going to affect you. And that's definitely, I know that comes up later on the show when the Cardassians retake Deep Space Nine, and Kira has to find herself working with the Cardassians and the Dominion, and how that presses on her.
It's just such a good show for that.
Yeah.
Speaking of how good a show this is, we should probably rank this on our big list of best to worst, which currently sits at 79 entries, going all the way from the number one Star Trek thing on our list, which is Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, which, I mean...
Yeah, it's Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan. If you've not seen it, go and see it. It's pretty good. Like, it's earned its way to the top of this list. Around, let's see, so 79. So, around the halfway point, we have the Least Dangerous Game from Lower Decks, where Boimler ends up hunted, kind of unintentionally consenting to being hunted in a Most Dangerous Game kind of situation. And then at the bottom, as mentioned earlier, we have Strange New Worlds' Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach, with the group walking away from a child-killing machine, What Makes a City Fly. So we have very few DS9 at the bottom of the list. Our lowest is the still very good fun Move Along Home, which is in place number 62.
Okay, it's Christmas, so let's get one more Alan Moraine out of our systems for good measure. On a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Alan Moraine!
Alan Moraine!
Alan Moraine! Home,
Alan Moraine!
Move along home! I am the Alan Moraine of Christmas past.
Yes, and of course our top spot for DS9 is number 2 on the list with Emissary. I mean, this is good. It's not Emissary.
It's not Emissary. Like, as much as I love this episode, it's no Emissary. I think it's a good one. Let's look at the list. Okay, The Conscience of the King, my previous Christmas episode. Is this better or worse? I can't be objective in it. I can't be subjective in this because they're two of my favorite Star Trek episodes. What do you think?
See, they're both good. Oddly enough, both of them give us some glimpses at different sides of it all. We get some nice looks at the Enterprise, kind of out of hours and all that. We're conscious of the King. I think I might prefer Necessary Evil. Part of it may well be the noir of it all. And getting to see some flashbacks which are interesting and tell their own story, but also act as good kind of introductions for characters to each other.
Okay, so above that we have Q Who, which is number 12 on the list, TNG episode, season 2, episode 16, which introduced the Borg.
Yeah, because I mean, at that point, you're getting some lovely horror.
You get some good horror. Like Q-Who definitely gives us really good horror, whereas I think this gives us a really good kind of film noir, Chinatown, uncovering the corruption.
Yeah, it just needs Odo with that little plaster on his nose.
Yeah. That's him trying to blend in with the Bajorans, which is, he just has the plaster over his nose and like it's just drawn on in like in Sharpie.
So, and the thing is, like, Q-Who had some fun Q shenanigans, and the introduction of the Borg is more big, more groundbreaking, I think, than getting the introduction to the kind of introduction to the earlier incarnations of the folks who were on the station.
And Q-Who also gives us that great moment at the end where they survive by having Picard have to admit, no, I'm scared of the situation that I am not prepared for.
Mm,
You have Picard, who's always very much a kind of like the stand up, unfazed, unrattled character,
yeah.
basically having to go, Q, I'm fucking scared that they want to stick metal things in me. Can we go home now, please? I think all three of these episodes show us really good facets. All of the central characters. We definitely see Kira when she was younger, when she was in the Resistance, and Odo slowly becoming Odo. So I definitely think this would probably fit in really nicely between both.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good shout as a place for it to live. Because, yeah, this is another damn good episode, DS9. But yes,
Between a damn good episode of TNG and a damn good episode of TOS.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Excellent. So that puts it at our new number 13. God, I remember a long time ago when 13 being the place where cat's paw would be in.
Oh yeah. All right.
So, Miles, I've got this for you.
Oh, I like the wrapping paper. Unlike last year's where the wrapping paper said "fuck Blake 7," it says Blake 7, come see, come ça. So clearly you got this in Paris.
Well, yes. Yeah, there's also a hatchet in there that I meant to bury, for Blake 7 enmity in.
It also says on the back, written in Sharpie, I don't like or dislike Blake 7, but Miles needs to stop bringing up hashtag Blake's Boys. Oh dear God, so help me, otherwise I will stop bringing up casually lost as an idea.
I mean, one day, once our 5-year mission is done. God, what horrors. So, I know it's a pretty big label. It's probably bigger than the present itself to put all of that on. But
Okay, all right, okay. I am just going to unwrap. Oh, sorry, I'm not going to wait. Why, Charlie, it's an episode of Deep Space Nine.
yeah, luckily it's not the same episode of Deep Space Nine.
It's called Move Along Home. Wait, we've done this one.
Oh shit. Oh, we have, haven't we?
We have. Okay, all right, okay. It is Far Beyond the Stars. Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 14. Aired 11th of February 1998. Teleplay by Ira Stephen Bear and Hans Beimler, or Beimler. Story by Mark Scott Xerxes and directed by Avery Brooks. The UK and US #1 hits were the UK Aqua with Dr. Jones. A lot of fun. That was a bop. And Janet Jackson's Together Again, which, oh God, I had so much fun.
It's a song I have not thought about since the late 90s. And yeah, it awoke some kind of nostalgia that I didn't know I had there. It was a nice time.
Yeah, this was really fun pop music. Like Aqua's okay, but like Together Again, when it got to the chorus and I realized what song we were listening to, I was like, yes,
Yeah.
this is real music.
Oh, it was a joyous experience discovering that. Because yes, like you, I had that moment of okay, and this is fine, but what is it? Oh, it's this one.
It's this song.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, if you want to recap this bit for us before Krampus comes.
Ah, yes, or Krampus.
Hmm.
All right. Okay, I've got my synopses.
So, ho ho, go!
Oh, that one's much better. All right. Benjamin Sisko is having the dark night of the soul. One of his closest friends, Captain Quentin Swafford, was lost along with his ship, the Cortez, in battle, and Sisko is wondering if he should resign from Starfleet and let someone else bear all this goddamn strain. His visiting father, Joseph Sisko, tells him that he'll understand, but he should really think about it first. Sisko gets distracted by a man wearing a suit, like a 1930s suit, walking past his door, but no one else saw anything. Later, when he's on a date with Cassidy Yates, Sisko sees a man who looks strangely like Worf out of makeup, dressed in a Giants uniform, and that's a baseball team, by the way, Charlie.
Okay.
It's very popular over here in the colonies.
Kind of like cricket?
Um, it's like cricket, but not as boring.
Wow.
And this guy in the not cricket uniform walks through a door. Sisko follows him, and the door immediately pops him out in 1953, where he promptly gets hit by a taxi. At least he wasn't in Madison, Wisconsin. People can't drive for shit here.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. Back on DS9, Bashir detects some weird brain readings, similar to an experience Sisko had last year concerning the wormhole prophets, which was giving him visions. Bashir hands Sisko a pad, which in Sisko's mind turns into an issue of Galaxy magazine, which is one of the most prestigious pulp sci-fi magazines of the era. It gave us Robert Heinlein's The Puppet Masters, The Demolished Man by Alfred Bester, Repent Harlequin Said a TikTok Man by Harlan Ellison, and a short story which is going to be revised into Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. And Ellison, we'll get back to him someday on this show, and Benjamin Sisko is now Benny Russell is a struggling science fiction writer. He's a struggling African-American science fiction writer working at Incredible Tales magazine alongside Herbert Russoff, Albert Macklin, Kay and Julius Eaton, all working for editor Douglas Pabst. And they all look like human versions of Quark, O'Brien, Kira, Bashir, and Odo, respectively. Pabst hands out artwork for stories to be written up for. And Benny is entranced by one that is of a space station, which looks like a more 1950s Earth Zerust version of Deep Space Nine. Pabst also announces that they're going to have photos taken of some of the writers, and so Kay, who is a woman, and Benny, who isn't white, should stay home, much to Benny's frustration. Benny pushes about why his photo can't be shown in magazine, and Pabst just firmly says, as far as the readers are concerned, Benny Russell is as white as they are. After work, Benny is stopped by two cops who look strangely like Gul Dukat and Wei Yun, but again, out of makeup. Man, ACAB. They bully Benny, believing him to be a janitor and a thief, but they let him go this time. Outside his apartment, Benny is stopped by a street preacher who looks like Joseph Sisko, Ben's father in the future, who tells him to write the words of the prophets. And in his apartment, Benny Russell writes a story about a man called Captain Benjamin Sisko, captain of the space station Deep Space Nine, and Captain Benjamin Sisko is very much not white. When he's got the story finished, Benny drops in on his fiancée Cassie, who looks like Cassidy Yates, who wants him to drop out of writing and work with him at this restaurant. They can try and build something worthwhile. Benny just doesn't want to. His heart is on being a writer, and he meets Willie, who is a black baseball player who looks like Worf out of makeup earlier, and Jimmy, who is a street kid who is sometimes on the bad side of the tracks. Benny won't quit, though. He wants to be a writer, no matter how hard it is. The magazine staff love the story, but Pabst won't publish it. A Negro space station captain just isn't believable, but he will publish it, though. Benny just has to compromise and make the character white. Benny won't do this, since that isn't what he wrote, even if that means compromising a really good sale. That evening, Benny once more encounters a preacher who tells him, "Walk with the prophets, brother Benny. Write the words that will lead us out of the darkness and onto the path of righteousness." And so Benny writes 6 more Captain Sisko stories, much to Pabst's anger and frustration. Macklin...
Oh, much to the anger and frustration of the timer. Oh, well. Well, actually, yeah, you got further in than I thought with that. But yes, right, and go.
Macklin comes up with a compromise. Make the first story a dream, being had by a poor African American who's dreaming of a better life. Paps agrees, and so does Benny, seeing this as a worthwhile compromise just so he can get his story published. Celebrating the sale, Benny and Cassie go out dancing, but tragedy strikes when the two police officers from earlier found Jimmy apparently trying to break into a car and shot him dead. When Benny tries to push past to get to Jimmy, the cops start beating him savagely, turning from two police officers into Gul Dukat and one of the Wayuns, respectively. I think there's a message here. Weeks later, now walking with a cane, Benny goes to the offices to see the newly printed issue Incredible Tales, which will contain his story. Unfortunately, there is no issue. The publishers had the entire run of the magazine pulped because it didn't meet their standards. Benny asks them what was the problem. Was it the art, the layout, or the fact that there was a story in the magazine written by and about a man of color? Oh, by the way, Benny, the publisher called and says you're fucking fired. But you can't fire Benny. Benny quits, emotionally breaking down in front of them. No matter what the publishers do, they can't destroy an idea. They can pulp a story, but the world of Benjamin Sisko, the world of Deep Space Nine, still exists in his mind and his heart, and that makes the idea real. Collapsing, sobbing to the ground, he gets put in an ambulance and driven away. In the ambulance, the preacher is there, telling Benny that he is both the dreamer and the dream. And Benjamin Sisko wakes up. The strange brain readings have vanished, and he's all right. His dark night has passed, and he has decided to finish the fight, stay with Starfleet. But part of him is still wondering if everything around him merely exists in the mind of Benny Russell, a man trapped in a world that won't see him as human. Dreaming of a time when equality for all races, colors, sexualities, and creeds is achievable. Dreaming of a future where that could be. Sometimes I wish that too. But wishing, as Benny Russell said at the end, never changed a damn thing.
Wow. Well, that's 2.5 minutes over. But
I'll take it.
yeah, it's quite the episode.
I had to, like, normally, as you may have guessed, most of my episode synopses are kind of just done by the seat of my pants.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like I really wanted to actually write this down
Yeah.
to kind of just get everything out. Oh, where do I start? Okay. Yeah, so Charlie,
Mm.
have you ever been accused of being a communist?
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
I was unintentionally put in charge of the young socialists at Brighton University briefly. I turned up late, so they'd voted that I'd be the person to lead it. So yeah, I've had from early times, I've had people pointing those kind of things at me.
I love the line, you haven't been this sad since the day Joseph Stalin died.
Oh dear. Yeah, well, so I was watching this and I've seen it before once or twice a long time ago. I'm watching it and going, man, like these are actors in a science fiction network TV show, but they give Mad Men with this. Like they give proper performances where you go like they could own a prestige thing.
I think all of the actors, especially the ones who definitely have more theatrical experience and TV experience, like Avery Brooks, Armin Shimmerman, and Rene Auberjonois, clearly love kind of getting into that sort of, I really don't want to say David Mamet, but it's kind of that 1950s world of like suits and ties and respectability. I love that the actor who plays General Martok turns up once or twice playing the artist who
Yes.
does the sketches, and he's clearly put some thought into how his character dresses to make him just look like this weird eccentric. He's got like the unlit stoogie and like the baseball coat, and he's immediately distinctive as a character. Like I think all the actors are really enjoying giving very different character performances than they used to.
Like I love how while Armin Shimmerman plays was it Rossov, his guy was still very like selfishly driven with the food. He's just very much on Benny's side and very comfortable being very confrontational with Odo.
All the kind of like writer characters are very loose analogs. Like people equate Benny Russell to the black queer SF writer Samuel R. Delany.
Yeah.
And Herbert Ross was very clearly inspired by Hal Nelson, who weren't part of this age of this immediate post-war age of SF. They came into, I think Ellison was publishing in the late 50s, but the stuff he's going to get more famous for, along with Delaney, is very much the kind of 60s new wave science fiction, where science fiction kind of drifted away more from spaceships and ray guns and monsters and more into talking about inner space instead of outer space, and going into more surreal, more political, more charged stories, which would come up from the mid-60s into a good chunk of the 70s. Colmini Mackie is very much a kind of like this nebbish Asimov type who likes writing story. I loved how just kind of awkwardly nebbish.
Oh, he was so good at that. Even that's the thing, like even at his most kind of O'Brien the put upon transporter chief, he isn't as kind of weak and unassuming as he is as Albert here. It feels like Colmini's having some fun.
Yeah, he's clearly not. He's clearly playing as very much more sheltered, like this very kind of reserved and less gregarious. Like, you know, he's definitely got that kind of that vibe. I think like the Kay and Julius Eaton are based on C.L. Moore and Henry Kuttner, who are famous. I don't. How much of like this era of SF have you read? Like this kind of, you know, you've got your Heinleins, you've got your Asimovs, and you've got your Bradburys, Arthur C. Clarke. In the year the book is set, so in the year this episode is set, novels that have been published were The Demolished Man. I think Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke also came out this year, which, given a lot of the themes of that story, seems very surprising because it feels like a much later story than what they were getting. I've dipped in and out. When I first started reading science fiction novels, which weren't Doctor Who Target novelizations or Star Wars books of the 90s, I started off with Asimov.
Yeah, same.
And I didn't read any Heinlein until my 20s. I'd read Starship Troopers when the film came out and just kind of over my head.
Yeah, for me, a little bit of Heinlein and a bit more Bradbury, but mostly Asimov for me for this kind of era of sci-fi.
Like, as much as I enjoy a lot of the sci-fi of this era, I'm definitely more. My tastes definitely do veer more to your new wave stuff like Dune, like the Michael Moorcock new wave stuff of the '60s, like the Jerry Cornelius books. I think I've started and quit Dahlgren by Samuel Delany more times than any other book.
Wow.
It's been equated to Ulysses in it's just so nearly unreadable in its denseness and love of language. And Heinlein, I appreciate Heinlein. I think his prose dates his work terribly, and any science fiction fan these days who claim that science fiction is too preachy and is basically a soapbox for the writer to express their political ideals and doesn't complain about Heinlein the same way is a goddamn hypocrite. But this is not a Miles talks about his reading for like the last 40 years podcast. We're here to
Although that was definitely a motivator for
that was definitely
this
motivated.
episode.
But I fucking love this episode.
Yeah. So the plot hook, the kind of mechanic of, oh, which one is real? We know
which is real,
and that's fine. Like the philosophical exercise of the, you know, he is the dreamer in the dream, and you know his thought of is he really Benny? Is obviously this is Cisco. I remember people talking about the Buffy episode where she led to believe that everything she did was not real, that she's a normal person and undergoing some kind of break, and hearing people go, "Oh yeah, wouldn't it be great if that was the case?" It's like, well, that's show over, basically,
Yeah,
and in a fairly unsatisfying way.
it's show over.
Hmm.
I know I've read in interviews that one of the ideas they mooted for like the ending of the last episode of DS9 was to have it turn out to be a TV show. It would cut to Benny Russell much older,
Hmm.
watching the show Deep Space Nine being made, and to show that his idea, his dream, and his idea became a reality. But they realized if we do that,
I mean, that's Star Trek
we
done.
broke Star Trek.
Yeah, or suddenly rendered that one whole section of Star Trek non-canon. As much as I think a lot of people saw the end of Enterprise going, "Oh yeah, this was a holodeck thing," it didn't render everything unreal with it
Yeah.
all. It wasn't like, "Oh yeah, Riker just did 4 seasons of."
Enterprise cosplay. That he did a LARP. He did an Enterprise LARP.
Yeah, that'd be weird. But yeah, this it feels like that's never on the table, and fine for that, because we, the audience, know better than that, and the writers and Avery himself as director aren't going to cheap it out on us.
No, and
But what if it really is kind of?
like I feel the reason why Cisco is having the visions are the prophets telling him that he has to stay the course. That
Hmm.
the fight is getting harder, but you have to keep walking the path, even if it hurts you, even if it steals your friends, even if it literally has you on the floor as the villains break your bones and just beat you down. You have to keep fighting because you have to believe in the dream you have and the values you uphold.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if we've met the captain who died, or the Cortez, and it doesn't matter
No,
in this. And that's like, this does such a good job of going, "Oh yeah, we're, 14 episodes through season 6. Uh, Shit's got rough, and it's going to continue to be that way for a little while now." Of course you're going to have that existential crisis.
it doesn't matter if it's someone we've seen a dozen times or it's just some guy who was written just to give Cisco this crisis.
Hmm.
It's that one more death.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if it's like a regular character or not. To Cisco, it's one more name on a list, which is getting bigger by the day.
Well, I remember in the final season of Battlestar Galactica, there's a moment where one of the characters takes their own life,
Oh,
and it felt out of the
that
blue, but completely consistent of, yeah, at this point, just fucking, yeah, it's so
yeah,
grim where they're at.
I remember that moment. It's shocking.
Yeah,
Like she has the nice date with her ex-husband. You think everything's gonna be fine. No,
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 fuck. Yeah, and that's the thing, like, you can't do the serialized moment by moment story in this era of Star Trek. It's still
no.
got to be single episodes, but this is representative of that tipping point. This could have been the breaking of Cisco, and seeing a similarly relentless, almost endless feeling battle, a battle which sadly, as you say, we still feel like has to be fought now.
I feel this episode, like, we haven't mentioned him and talked about this, but I think Avery Brooks gives a performance, which I think is I just think back to like how much I love him in Emissary when he's breaking down and processing the death of his wife, when he's forced to have to be relive it again and again, and just seeing how very much similar Benny is to Cisco, but just how different Benny is, because with Cisco you've seen the hardships, you've seen the joy, and whenever you see Benny, you just see a man who is trying so desperately hard to not be broken by a world and society that wants him broken.
Yeah. And yeah, inspired use of Mark Alamo and Jeffrey Combs as the cops, with just that perfect sinister energy, getting the villains to be the villains here. While kind of obvious at the same time, it's lovely seeing Jeffrey Combs without the makeup in a Star Trek.
Yep.
And yeah, just that energy, like the utter tension of them interacting with Benny. It feels so uncomfortable.
These are the parts of the episode which I think have unfortunately aged well. As we've seen the discussion about racism in American policing and racism in Western policing. I mean, we can't. Sorry, I'm gonna briefly get on a soapbox.
Okay.
As someone who's lived both in the UK and the US, I am unfortunately aware of how both systems are broken, and I feel like in the UK we have used America as a scapegoat to get away from our own problems by because it seems like every time something gets brought up about the British government, about British policing, about the institutionalized racism that has existed in the US, in the British police world, and something we've been aware of since like the 90s, that the media will just go, but look at those assholes over in America. We're clearly fine, and we're clearly not. Just those scenes and just the quiet, intense fury you have in Benny at the beginning when he's bringing up W.E. Du Bois and other successful African-American writers, a lot of whom came out of the Harlem Renaissance.
Yeah.
Which is I think it was in the 1930s, which was this huge African-American art movement based in Harlem in that time, where you had a lot of new literature, new art, and you have Pabst, who I think is the most despicable character of all in this, because he has both contempt for Benny and all of Benny's struggles, and also the audience of the magazine he claims to be publishing. He's a job's worth.
Yeah.
Like, he is Odo. If Odo just cared about the job, he doesn't care. He doesn't care who's given the orders. He is the Odo who would collaborate unashamedly with Ducat. He is the Odo who would have given Kira over because Ducat's the man in charge. He dictates the orders.
Yes, God, yeah, it's fascinating to see, and just that horror of how easy that complicity is, and to go, don't get me wrong, I want change, I just won't do anything to do with it. And
it's the same argument we're having today.
Yeah.
When people are complaining about trans activists, about like people protesting the violence of the police. It's that one comment people have about centrists, which is people say that centrists will say that both sides have their problems and that both sides are wrong, but they will inevitably side with the oppressors and not with the oppressed. This would be the most fun. This would be the most fun Christmas.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's fascinating to see all of this. So oddly enough, my watching of Riverdale, they kind of, so imagine this sort of story, but instead of Avery Brooks, it's Jughead Jones.
Oh God.
Yeah, and it works.
Oh, let me guess. Is this about the censorship of the Comics Code Authority and its treatment of EC in the horror comics?
No, this is after that. This is about having a black protagonist in a science fiction story.
You what, mate?
I was like, so Jughead's gonna fix that.
Yes, Jughead Jones will fix racism in America.
Well, he kind of like gets the comet to prominence, which then Veronica's able to use Hollywood connections to make into a film, with a science fiction film about a black man and a white woman who fall in love, and a comet and space travel and all of this. And it's like, okay. Well, again, they've got a strict clock to go on, kind of cover every single story. Every 5-10 minutes they turn over another one.
I feel bad that we've not mentioned the Dax analog, who is the secretary, who is portrayed as very kind of ditzy, but she has that great line. She has a slug in her belly. That's disgusting, fascinating, but disgusting.
Well, yeah, it's that thing of she acts very kind of like a bit of a ditz, but also has the knowledge.
Yeah,
sci-fi wise with all of this stuff.
Matt, it's almost like women can be fans of science fiction.
What?
I know.
Wow.
Like I Oh God, I don't know. I think you can go on about this episode for a lot, but I think it comes down to that final speech, that final breakdown with Benny Russell with Avery Brooks, which I think sums up so much of what science fiction's potential can achieve.
Yeah.
How sadly it falls short of reality, because one line from Jimmy, which is, white people only want us in space just to shine their shoes. This is how you change a society, that you present an idea, and you fight to make the idea a reality.
That's where sometimes you can end up disappointed with the real side of things, with Marvel going, oh yeah, we've got a lot more inclusive characters, we've got all of these kind of things. You've still got a guy in charge that pretended to be a Japanese man. Still got, I remember with the Fall of X lineup, how very male it was. You look at DC's New 52, and again, very similar sorts of things, where if you're a white guy that was mates with Bob Harris in the 90s, then you've got a job.
Or like, I would say something like the Jodie Whittaker era of Doctor Who. I love Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. I wish she had gotten better material.
Yeah.
But for all the ways people complain that, oh, the Doctor's a woman, that means the show's woke now, it's still a show created and written predominantly by a white guy who seems to think that just having the Doctor be a woman is enough, and just doesn't really do more. As much as the characters like the story here, and they side with Benny, when push comes to shove, Benny's alone. As much as they all kind of protest at Pabst, which I couldn't keep hearing the name and not think of the beer, Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Same.
It's just, yeah. As much as they present the ideas and agree, they will only stand up so far. They won't walk the walk.
So, Miles, think it's probably a good time for us to scroll the hell up on this list and have a look at where this goes.
Oh my.
Because fuck, it's a good episode. And it's that thing of it's a very good episode. It is very much its own beast, away from a lot of the Star Trek things, while also being very much the heart of what Star Trek can be.
I think this is that rare occurrence where it's an episode where it's essentially talking about I think it's one of the few times Star Trek gets meta, because it's using an episode of Star Trek to talk about all the good that Star Trek claims to have done and has tried to do. And that's its own conversation, given that it took like the 21st century to have a queer character in Star Trek, and it took us till Deep Space Nine to have like a non-white leading man.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, we talk about how Star Trek has political messaging in it, it's this one, the politics is the story, is the message of what science fiction Star Trek can achieve. It's a meta commentary on what you can do with science fiction.
Definitely.
So, like, oh my god, I don't.
This is where it's often tricky, going, oh, this is really good. Oh no, I have to judge it against other things.
Because, like, this is a fantastic story. It's a fantastic, like, TV play. It's just like, is it Star Trek? Does Far Beyond the Stars exemplify Star Trek as much as, say, The Wrath of Khan or Emissary or Balance of Terror? Like,
see, that's where I'd say, even the pilot of Strange New Worlds is a pure unit of Star Trek.
Yes.
Sure, some of it may be, it's very TV pilot kind of stuff, but it is a Star Trek from tip to toe, and this is incredibly good. But yeah, it's how to weigh up those two levels, really, of Star Trekness and importance and quality.
If you compare this to Strange New Worlds, which do you think is better? I don't know what criteria do you judge it. Do you judge it as like a piece of fiction, or do you judge it as a piece of Star Trek?
Yes, basically, it's that balance of both.
And like the thing is, essentially our list is us playing top trumps with two separate episodes of basically going, right, Balance of Terror, Strange New Worlds, which one wins? And the answer was Balance of Terror, TOS, episode 8, season 1, ranked number 3 on the big list.
And I think deservingly so still.
Yeah. And this is just kind of like, part of me just wants to go, right, we have a new number 1. Star Trek African didn't last long, But it's just like, is that as a unit of Star Trek, or as a unit of storytelling?
TV, yeah. Yeah, and I think it is that thing of, the reason Trouble with Tribbles is so high in our number 8 spot currently is because it is important to Star Trek as a whole, rather than necessarily a good thing. Because otherwise, the motion picture might might have beaten it,
Yeah,
but it didn't.
it didn't.
Yeah, I mean that's where it's difficult. Like I've probably seen both the Strange New Worlds pilot and Far Beyond the Stars about the same amount of times each, and both are very good. Like this is higher quality of television, definitely. It's just if someone needed to know what Star Trek was, I have a single episode I could go, that is a Star Trek.
I am not having this be like one of the first episodes of Deep Space Nine my wife sees. Because I feel like you need to have had the context of the characters. Because I also think like the actors they have playing the respective analogs is in some ways deliberate. And I feel like you have them be reflections of themselves, even if Nana Visitor and Sadik Elf and Alexander Siddig are kind of just there in the background. And I think like the joke in that one is at the time those two actors were married in real life. So they're playing the two science fiction writers who are famously married. And the secretary is just there because, oh, we need to give Terry Farrell a role to play.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one last bit of trivia. Brock Peters, who plays the preacher in Joseph Sisko, has played Darth Vader.
What?
National Public Radio did radio dramatizations of the original 3 Star Wars films. The only actor who crossed over was Mark Hamill playing Luke, and this was like in the early 80s. And they had Brock Peters play the voice of Darth Vader. Brock Peters has also been in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Wow. Quite a pedigree then.
But that's my last bit of trivia, just to kind of like, part of me almost wants to go, I don't think Far Beyond the Stars can be properly fit on the list. It's almost its own thing. And I feel to kind of put it on the list either, or just to compare, like, we've got House of Quark on here.
We do. Shockingly high.
If you go, which is better, you kind of go, man, this feels trivial. I think having Far Beyond the Stars on the list breaks our list.
But at the same time, we are on our road to 100.
Oh, yeah. Threshold awaits.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if we've said it on the show, but when the 100th episode of Star Trek we're going to review will be Threshold, will be Warp 11 Salamander Sex.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah, oh, God. Okay.
Okay, I think where you were looking at with Strange New Worlds, like just above or just under, like Balance of Terror is again a perfect unit of a Star Trek, and it gets us some Romulans, it gets us,
I think I am good with this for the time being. Number 5. Under Strange New Worlds, but okay, what do you think? Better or worse than Strange New Worlds?
top 5 is still a very good showing.
Oh, yes.
Cause and Effect's just under it in the current 5 slot, and that is an amazing episode of TNG. Like, we are not belittling this episode.
No.
But I think Strange New Worlds' pilot is possibly more Star Trek in that regard. It kind of, as much as I like Discovery, Strange New Worlds was the one that got a lot of people sitting up and listening and going, oh shit, it's back.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Oh, this is, we've had Discovery try a bit prestige stuff. We've had Picard go way too far trying to do that. And then suddenly, oh, this is resurrected
Yeah.
the spirit, the soul of it. And yeah, this is an amazing episode of DS9. Ultimately, as you say, it is not the one that you would say is your first
No.
episode, and it would lose something as much as some of the elements are nods, like Odo and Quark's dynamic being put to Pabst and Roscoe.
The cops being played by like the villains of the show.
Yeah.
Although that said, having like Kai Wynn be one of the cops would have been hilarious.
Oh god, that would have been good fun. Yeah, I'm shocked she didn't end up in some role there.
I think they had all the roles that you've got. Michael Dorn is clearly loving not being in makeup.
It was so nice to see him in a nice mood. You know, Michael Dorn's a lovely guy anyway, and to see him actually being there and all, like, happy and cheerful rather than kind of stunned Klingon.
Like, you also see his character is like a big, like, famous baseball player, but they won't let him move into a white neighborhood despite how popular he is.
Yeah, and Jake's actor evidently having a lot of fun being a real scumbag.
Do you know who was clearly having fun? The actor who plays Nog.
Oh, yes.
Playing the newsie.
Yes.
Playing the newspaper guy. Just gonna do that kind of Brooklyn accent. Science fiction, I don't get it myself.
Watching them all have a lot of fun with hamming it up in their roles, you know.
Everyone's having fun. I don't really think anyone's kind of hamming it up.
Sorry, yeah, giving it their all, I guess, is the sensible version of that.
I think the term hamming it up has been given too many connotations because people kind of assume that like going big is somehow going bad.
Yeah.
I think it's Shatner's fault.
Let's blame Shatner.
Let's blame Shatner.
Okay.
I would love if that was named for our Christmas episode. Let's blame Shatner, and he'll only be mentioned like once.
At the very end. Well, let's also blame Shatner for Necessary Evil being on here as well. You know, that was a good thing. It was a good episode. But that is very much Shatner's fault for Tek War.
Yep. All right. Okay, so number 5.
There we go. Number 5. It's such a good episode. And yeah, one of those ones that definitely bears revisiting.
And just considering like the themes and ideas of the story.
Oh, yes. So, with that, we've managed to make talking about 2 episodes carry on into about the length of 3 episodes. But, so yes, we will fill that time, no matter what. Anyway, we've got Christmas to go to, and hopefully so have you, or, you know, whatever festival you want to enjoy, or just enjoy some time off work. So, next time, we're going to be celebrating the new year by saddling up and heading out to the Wild West. And I am doing finger guns while I'm saying that.
Yeehaw, partner.
Yeah, so if you like what we do, please head on to our Ko-fi page and sling us some gold press platinum. And in return, we'll build an episode of a show based around your choice of Star Trek episode or even a general theme. Outside of that, you can find us on Blue Sky as Casual Trek and on the Nerd and Tie forums as well. And Miles, where can we find you?
You can find me on my blog on www.mareadlobato.wordpress.com. And Charlie, where can they find you?
Why, I'm able to be found on fakedtales.com and on skyshark.itch.io, where I put some creative things occasionally.
He also spends a lot of time posting X-Men comics, but it's not really a good era for X-Men, so, you know, come back later.
Yeah, God, but when this airs, on Christmas no less, I'll probably be posting online about X-Men Fantastic Four by acclaimed comic writer Akira Yoshida. I wonder what happened to that guy. On that note, that's it from us and from Akira Yoshida. And enjoy your time off. And
happy holidays. Go to a Starfleet, live long, and have a mince pie.
I think I will. You've been listening to Casual Trek by Charlie Etheridge Nunn and Miles Reed Lobato. Music by Alfred Etheridge Nunn. Casual Trek's part of the Nerd and Tie network, and if you want to support us monetarily, because you love what we do that much, you can now do that by going to Ko-fi and looking up Casual Trek. There's a link in the show notes.